Hello, we have Ryan. He's an architectural technologist, around 15 years of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess by qualification, you could argue that we're specialists in the technical aspect of buildings. Traditionally, in larger practices, we would be dealing with construction drawings most of the time.
Okay. Execution part of it, or it's your part of design?
Yeah, so we do actually cover all design stages. So I guess in the UK, it may be different in other parts of the world, and I'm sure it is. But in the UK, traditionally, in a larger practice, you have the architect will do the concept and planning stage, and the technologist or technician will do the technical side of things. However, you do have technical architects that do the technical part as well, and you do have design-led technologists like myself. So there is a crossover, and it depends on your professional experience that will dictate when you or if you were to open up your own practice as to whether you're capable of offering all of those services.
Thank you, Ryan, for again explaining about the architectural technologist role. And we have Jatziri. She's an architect from Mexico. She's our exclusive channel partner from Mexico. Today, we are not just discussing about the roles like architect and architectural technologist. That's the bigger question, like how does an idea become a buildable and profitable and manageable project? So do you have the similar roles in Mexico as well?
Yes, we have similar roles. In Mexico, we work under the same title, architect. It's not distincted if it's like a technical architect or just a normal architect. I would say it's like a title that it's also like protect. You need to have your studies backup and a legal license, but it's not like there's not this difference of like who makes who makes each activity. So yeah, I was like very interested before like we started the meeting. I also like asked Ryan about this part from the UK. So yeah, I had like also that perspective, but we have those roles, but not like distinctive.
Okay, so from an architect standpoint, Jatziri, does the architect usually own both creative design and technical execution in Mexico?
Yes. But if you do the execution, you need to have like this backup from someone that has a title to like study all these plans for the construction. But still, they just like do the design. Then the architect like it's like in smaller sizes of projects, but like then the architect takes charge of all this execution. And ideally, at the end, this person that got like signing the thing, they go back and then like check like everything was executed correctly.
Got it.
In the UK, the title architect is protected by law, and protected title. It means that you have to train to become an architect, and you have to be registered to the body called the ARB, the Architects Registration Board. There's potential that may change. For example, so the Royal Institute of British Architects president announced just before Christmas that he would not be renewing his membership with the ARB. I think the main reason for my professional institute, by the way, is the Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologists, different to the RIBA. But the RIBA president, I think he's done that to make a bit of a point, really, in the sense that the title is protected in the UK, but the function is not. So we have new laws came in about sort of in 2023, October 2023 and April 2024, where we have certain roles on a construction site, on a technical project, where you have principal designer and principal contractor and all these sort of things that take a certain amount of accountability basically on a project. But anyone technically could be that role as long as they hold the right skills, knowledge, experience and behavior. You don't have to be an architect and you don't have to be a technologist. And the title architect is protected, but the function is not. So it diminishes really the importance of being an architect or being an architectural technologist. So there is a differentiation between the roles, and there's different skills that are applied to different roles, and there is still very good reason as to why you would train to be an architect or train to be a technologist. But particularly in the residential sector, they wouldn't understand, and when they come search for an appropriate professional to design their project, let's say a new house, it is very much segregated at the moment. They would typically come across an architect because a technologist like myself cannot use that title in metadata or marketing. So there's an element of unfairness, but also an element of lack of protection to the function. The more important thing is that the function of what we do should be protected. Just like a lawyer or a surgeon surgeon.
Thank you, Ryan, putting this in detail. So in general, where do projects usually start breaking down? Design, drawing, communication, or procurement, or it's site execution? More than a decade of experience you have, Ryan. We would like to hear from you because you might have more involved in execution of the project.
All of those points that are is where things can break down. I think from my experience, I find that there's a lot more red tape in our industry now. There's a lot more regulation, a lot more tighter legislation that controls that regulation as well. So I find that sometimes there is a breakdown between the cost of some solutions that we know are probably appropriate, but they don't meet new regulation. A good example was fire regulation. So we know that fire hasn't changed, and we know that plasterboard hasn't changed. And typically we know that a 15 mil fireboard will give you approximately 30 minutes. However, the regulation around that testing is now very different to what it was even just 2 or 3 years ago. So what complies now and what didn't comply before are very different. And so we quite often find that we do have difficulty in trying to convey that with clients, trying to get them to understand why additional costs are required to meet those regulations. I've probably touched on just one point there, but I'll let Jatziri maybe touch on costs.
Can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, from the beginning, right? You need to have defining the limits from your project. This varies between firms, architecture firms. The ones with more experience, of course, they have more these terms and conditions well worked. But there are some are more free. So for example, you make the initial cost of what will be. So what is mostly work over here, if it's smaller projects, if it's larger projects, you have all these terms and conditions from the beginning, really well redacted to know the limits, right, from this project. So that's for larger ones. For smaller ones is the same, but the system that we're using the most is we'll work week from week and share these prices. We share the ones from the beginning, then state this will be going up. So if costs go out of budget because there was this huge change, then this kind of delays start coming up because there will be some changes, or the procurement part will be slower, if we can find something to help our client to keep the budget.
Got it. So how do we convince or communicate to the customer these changes in terms of what variation control?
It comes down to management of communication. Every company, every country will do things slightly differently, but having systems in place where you're consistently advising the client at the right points in the project for what the budget is, and £1 million. And then you have to have certain checkpoints in place. So for example, we try to guide a client as to our understanding on structure. So when we're taking out load-bearing walls, for example, where we know steelwork is going to be introduced, we'll have an idea as to the level of work involved for that project. But we'll also introduce them to people like quantity surveyors as early as possible to get something called a budget cost estimate put together. We'll try to avoid introducing them to builders unless they have a preferred contractor. The reason being is because individual builders will price things slightly differently. Small checkpoints at each stage of the project. So one will be at concept design, one will be at planning, another one will be pre-construction. So at tender stage, obviously throughout the tender stage, we're normally getting costs back at that point anyway. So that's when things can be really firmed up. But yeah, you're always trying to take checkpoints and having systems in place to do so.
Okay, so this is the interesting communication pattern you mentioned. So in general, do you get involved early enough in quantity takeoff, material selection, procurement, and variation control? Do you get involved at early stage, or when does this architectural technologist come into the picture?
I cover all stages of the project, from feasibility, concept, planning through to construction. But ultimately, yeah, I guess most of the cost analysis, if you were, would happen at technical stage. Once you've had an engineer involved, you've got civils or structural. You'd also be assessing effectively the drawings as a package to go to tender. So that's when most of the costs will be analysed, I guess. But it would certainly maybe a little bit at the planning concept design stage, so that you can sort of try to tailor the design to a budget as much as possible through experience and knowledge. But ultimately, you're never going to know firm hard figures until the project's completed, really. But in reality, you're not going to really get the majority of that information until technical stage has been completed. So pre-tender, basically.
So what about in Mexico, Hatsi? So architects, do you get involved at early stage? So in other words, you get involved in quantity takeoff stage, or while selecting the materials or procurement planning?
From the early beginning, you search for an architect for the design. So it all parts from designing, and then the client liking what they see. And after that, we'll start creating all these projects, right? All these technical things. So we start getting the materials and start cotizations.
Quotation.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. So we start getting cotizations from many providers. Usually we stay with the same, if an architect likes how one works, they will keep working with them as vendors and providers and contractors. So yeah, we start from the very beginning, and we will continue all this track with our client, informing each advance. So they are on the same page with us. We don't get out until it's with the keys. So, this is your new home, your new project. You can use it right now.
Yeah, that is interesting. That is a statement most of the customers waiting for, the finally handover. You have been hearing about AI and software engineering background, and what we are seeing today is significant change. In software, we have architects. They build a blueprint of software, just like how you build through design, through different tools. After adoption of AI, it has changed significantly. Now, how will this BIM, AI, and project management platform change the future role of architect and architectural technologies? And what kind of task will be replaced by AI? So 2 years back, it was pretty new. Now today, you might be experiencing how AI is replacing certain roles and functions in the industry. So Ryan, we would like to hear from you from the UK, and what is your observation? What is your experience?
I mean, I'd love to learn what Jatziri says about this, because I've never worked in another country before. So in my experience at the moment, it's not quite there. Understanding the grey areas of regulations at the moment in the UK. So although regulations are documented, there are quite a few grey areas, so nuances and things that are open for interpretation. And it requires that human element to it to justify something, or to understand where those grey areas are in the regulations that can be applied for a particular scenario. I find that at the moment, they're maybe not as suited to that, but they are certainly suited to producing visualization, to automation of filing and automation of systems in business. And I think that that's probably quite broad, but ultimately I think that it's the administration side of architecture, which I'm sure Jatziri will agree that most of the time we're not actually drawing and designing, although I'd love to be. I'd say 50-60% of my job is actually administration, whether it's managing projects or managing clients or preparing documentation. It's not actually designing the property. So I think in the very near future that a lot of those processes will be automated, and I think it's going to trickle down. We're a very small practice. I'm a sole practitioner, so I don't have a large firm, but I imagine that that's going to be more evident in the larger firm first. So your Foster and Partners and the large practices in the UK, I imagine that they're already adopting that sort of thing. They probably use it very widely at the moment, whereas small practices like myself, it becomes a little bit harder to adopt, because you're wearing so many hats, you're doing so many different things already, and trying to find the time to implement new systems and processes within the business is really tricky. So I think that those administrative tasks that will be solved first by AI.
Excellent observation, Ryan. So what did you observe from Mexico? In a week, do you speak with 2 to 3 architects and contractors while presenting the demo? So
the drawing part, it's well-known area for all architects. From when you graduate and then start working and everything, you really know that part, and it's very well known. So you get faster, right? So this management part is 50 or 60% of the things, to get all these needs from the client, and then like knowing that you included everything in your invoicing and the estimations and everything. So like lately people are searching for tools that help like to have this burden, to say so, like easier, so right now they're starting to searching for tools that help them to with AI to help them know like way before if it's like scheduling delay or their cost or like their finances, like to see in real time what it's going on, so this doesn't hit like their revenue for the project. So yeah, they're like starting to search these AI tools more like for management than for design, maybe like also visualization and everything, but it's more likely to search AI for management to help to ease this work that requires a lot of fronts coming, like at certain point as an architect, you need to be like, we have these words in Spanish that it's todólogo. Todólogo is like you need to like everything, you need to know everything, like construction, then designing, then budgeting, and then cost. So yes, you need to have these, you have the specialists of course that help you in each area, but like as Ryan explained it also, if you're like a smaller one, you need to know everything, and you're then the kind of, but you need to this help in the management part. I would say it's like more like that.
Yeah, thank you, Hersi. The next question, I think that is not, I have not added that as part of my list, but now the social media presence has become so important that whatever the creativity you are bringing right now, every architect, every interior designer, they have an amazing social media channels that can be Insta, that can be LinkedIn, they post it. So is it trending up in UK? How is it happening today in the UK?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, that's one thing that probably I probably am worst at really is that the social side of it, social media, I only recently did we refresh our socials. We've, started posting a little bit more, but still nowhere near the amount that we need to post. Larger firms will have social media experts that will be posting regularly for them anyway. Whereas again, going back to Jatziri, what she said there is that, we're trying to do everything. So if I have to post, for example, once or twice a day, that's a lot of time out of my week, not just in posting, because that's the easy part, but it's the preparation to have a valuable post. And I think that at the moment, I'm seeing a trend more where the most valuable posts are ones that educate, ones that teach something different. Pretty pictures are great. And I think the age of gaining a lot of followers very quickly has gone. If you asked me 5-10 years ago, it was a race for everyone to start posting on Instagram, and you could gain, followers very quickly as long as you were posting content all of the time. But now it's a lot harder to gain followers now. And I think now it's more about having content that is educational, it's informative. It's of course having, visual content that's attractive to clients and attractive to users, but ultimately, particularly in the LinkedIn sphere, to have content that is educational is to me one of the most fundamental things at the moment.
Yeah. Now, if an image is being generated by AI, or if the content is being generated by AI, and we don't give much attention to that, we just scroll up, right? If something is educational and which is adding value, which is with real content, real people, real image, it is not just one prompt and generating an image. So it is with thoughtfully you put some ideas and created images, right? Now those images are getting traction now, images that can be a content. It is not like giving a prompt, generate 10 to 15 lines of content, put that in social media channels. Now the trend is changing. It is not only from the technical people, and it is from any end user standpoint, the thought process is changing. Rather just scrolling up, if it is from AI generated stuff coming in, if it is a real content, real image, people giving attention. So I agree with you. So over to you, Hersi. I mean, how is this transition happening in Mexico as well? And do you have any comments what Ryan has mentioned about?
Yeah, it's the same over here. So people do like educational content too. Like if you're an architect, it's mostly like you share like the experience in like your work site, because people are like very curious, right? So before in social media, I think like construction was something that just people in construction areas know, so if you're outside of that, you relate like in other people, hoping that they also know. So the advantage of social media is like if you share these educational posts and then you have this traction, people will start like commenting their point of views. Like it's more like human thing, and then like raw content from construction. Like
I agree with. Thank you, Hatsi. What I understood from this conversation is that so far the architecture or construction, right now we were talking about the designs or executions or project planning or tracking. But so with the insights of Ryan as an architectural technologist, and from you, Hatsi, you were able to connect the dots of all the stages, right, from the concept, documentation, and compliances. What Ryan has mentioned in the UK, how it affects and how it is being transitioning through the AI, and procurement, project tracking, and until handover, everything is connected with each other. So which is nothing but every dotting being connected in the process.
Just thank you for having me, and it's always good to understand different perspectives.
Hatsi, once again, thank you so much for joining.
yeah, thank you. So thank you to Ryan.